So the English test you've mentioned before, that's quite tricky. Is this still the situation with the 485 visa?
It can be, Emily. The trickiness or the tricky part was in relation to, one reason is because of the departmental policy attitude that they had at a particular time. At a particular time, the people were able to lodge the application by just giving evidence of having English or sitting for an exam. They didn't need to have the exam result at hand. And all of a sudden the department decided the laws and interpreted in a way that is adverse to clients. That is, if a client has applied without having the actual result, the department refused. So there was actually a court case, the famous Beringwell case. The Anthony Bonici passed away, the barrister who handled that matter. So, and then because of the court decision, the government changed laws and made it sort of very clear and compulsory that you should not only have evidence of sitting for the English language exam, but actually achieve the particular result.
So Dinesh, what if you come from a country that has an English-speaking background? Do you still have to do the test, or can you produce something else?
It's very specific if we consider the law, Emily. Now, you might consider that you have an English-speaking background, but the law says a passport of a certain country, and it specified the kind of country. For example, from memory, United Kingdom, USA, New Zealand, Canada.
What about places like Hong Kong?
Well, that's an interesting question because you would have asked that question because Hong Kong passport holders can produce British passports because of the political situation existed at a particular point in time in the history. In fact, I've got a client who had a British passport and who thought or was given advice by an agent or a friend, I can't remember exactly, but anyway the result was she thought she produced the British passport and applied because she didn't have to sit for the exam. Ultimately the application was refused for not meeting that particular criteria. And I can't remember whether she went to the review tribunal. I think she did, and it was refused as well.
Wow.
And the council's opinion was also that she wouldn't meet the criteria because if we go into the law to check the particular kind of passport, despite what the website in the department says, the inside of the regulation indicated that this particular passport held by the Hong Kong national, a British passport of an overseas national or something like that, that's how it is identified as, did not qualify under this requirement. So her 485 because of that was refused, and we had to go and get the minister to intervene personally under a ministerial intervention request. And finally, after doing so much of lot of submissions and evidences, finally we got a successful result by the minister. However, that's not the case
you sort of don't want to have to take so many steps.
Exactly, and it's not guaranteed. If the minister is not satisfied, the minister wouldn't exercise the discretion to grant the visa.
Now, are there any tests in regards to character on top of that?
Yes, that's actually is a common criteria as well, Mary. You have to, but the benefit of that is, in a way, at the end you have to meet the character test, but at the time of the application, for it to be not refused for not meeting the time of application criteria, you have to at least apply to the Australian Federal Police and provide acceptable evidence. You don't have to have the police clearance at hand. Yes.
So is there any difference between having a national police check and the Victorian police check, let's say?
Yes, yeah. Good question. I should have explained that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the visa law is a federal, governed by federal legislation, and also the Victorian police check doesn't cover the federation, the Australia. So by law, you have to produce a federal police check, and it could be easily identified from the online system where you go in the AFP section to apply for a national police clearance check, because you have to, in the old days, like probably an year or two ago, you have to put a specific number to identify it's for immigration purposes, because if it is for a different purpose there would be a different identification number, and the police would do a different kind of check. But now it's easy, because you just go to the AFP website and follow the instructions and you will get the appropriate test.
So Dinesh, we've gone through some of the criteria. What other criteria? So do you have to have health insurance while you're on this 485 visa?
You have to have, Emily, also it's quite important, similar to other requirements. At the time of the application, it needs to have been accompanied by evidence that the applicant had health insurance. Now again, you have to, if you go through the laws, and identify what exactly needs to be done, you have to fulfill those requirements. So it's detailed, and you must go through and just meet the health requirement criteria, and if you don't meet the health requirement at the time of the decision, again the visa application will be refused.